Hello, so today we're going to talk about Malazan Book 10. This is the final book in the Big 10 Malazan Book of the Fallen books. There are spin-off books, I think written by someone else. There are sequel series. I haven't read any of that. I only know the Big 10, but I have completed that series, and that's what this video is going to be. Now, I have been struggling with my voice the last couple of days. I'm fine, but I have a cough and I lose my voice very easily, and that's just what's happening right now. So over the last couple of days, my voice has been very in and out. I have tea with me here. I'm hoping it will last through this video. So we're gonna start with the Bone Hunters, traveling through the glass desert. I think at this point in the story, we're under 1,000 men. We have been dropping people rapidly. We're having to kill horses in order to survive. We barely have enough water left. At one point reading through this, I was wondering if Erikson was just going to kill them all. If we were literally going to, after everything we've been through, lose all our bone hunters in the desert here. Blistig is a really standout character because he's really losing it through all this suffering that they're going through and watching his men die. And he's had quite the journey through the duration of this story, but he's starting to plan a mutiny. He is at his wit's end. And two, also we have the environment itself that is a part of what they're going through, because the Forkal Assail actually killed their own god. Their warped view of justice led them to this, which then, my understanding is, shattered into, that all of these moths and bugs are actually pieces of this god that they killed. So their warped view of justice has caused the destruction of this being, which is now reaping its own warped view of justice on everyone all throughout Dust of Dreams and the Crippled God. And there's this beautiful scene where they meet the snake and Fiddler wastes his water for this baby that has already died as this act of compassion. And this is something that Erikson has hammered into us throughout these books, is this theme of compassion as well as this theme of children are suffering, and that children are oftentimes the ones that suffer the most in war, and people constantly turning away children or failing to protect the children. All throughout the series, these themes, compassion and failing to protect the children, are some of the biggest things that keep coming up again and again and again. And so this scene almost feels like a culmination of all of that, where finally we get this thematic release where we see Fiddler do this seemingly almost like useless or seemingly almost stupid, because his men are dying too. They don't have enough water, and it doesn't seem like there's much hope going forward, but he still chooses to show this act of compassion to these children in this moment. And Tavor chooses to take them on and say that they're now our responsibility, they're now ours to care for. Erikson's making a very deliberate point here of showing us what's right in opposition to the wrong that we've seen again and again and again up to this point. And then we also have Blistig here, who is the opposition to that, being very practical, being very pragmatic, saying, we don't have the water to spare. Our men are dying. We're killing off our horses here. Like, we cannot take these children on as our responsibility to give any sort of sympathy or care to. But despite all that, they still make the choice to take responsibility for the children. And like I said, it feels like the culmination of these themes that have been stated again and again and again and again all throughout the books have finally had that relief in this scene. Not that they're not going to have further relief later on when we get to the actually interacting with the Crippled God. But we finally get to this scene where Tavor does cut her hand and plunge the dagger into the ground, and the water wells up, and they finally have their relief as well. Again, I think thematically very important that Erikson had the relief of showing that great act of compassion even at great cost to them, and then finally they find their salvation in the wilderness when all hope seemed lost. The water flows out from the basin in as thick as blood, it's said to be, and there's this celebration and relief, narrative relief as they finally have hope of their own survival. They finally have something go right for them after sacrificing their own water for the children. Visually and thematically, I love this scene, but practically, I have questions. Why did Tavor wait so long? I know Male Bug, when he gave Tavor the dagger in Dust of Dreams, said when you're at your most desperate point is when you should use the dagger or something like that. I understand that, but it seems like we got to the point of greatest desperation a long time ago. Like many deaths ago. A lot of marching before this. I feel like we got there. And so with Tavor, a friend pointed this out to me, and I didn't think about it like this, but so I had forgotten about the dagger. I was waiting for everyone to just die. Like that, at this point, I'm just like, Erikson's just gonna kill everyone. Whereas my friend who was reading this too, knew about the dagger, remembered the dagger, was waiting for Tavor to use it, and was thinking, oh man, Tavor's gonna have to kill herself, spill all her blood in order to have this sacrifice for these men. And so he was thinking she's just waiting and waiting and waiting to see if there's any other solution before she has to make the sacrifice. So when she cut her hand, and he's like, that was it? And so it was funny because we came at it from separate perspectives where he remembered the dagger, I didn't. And we both, at the end of the scene, were like, why did she wait so long? Why did they suffer so much if this was all it took? And I realized that they were getting to this basin, but I feel like there's a lot of land mass. There's a lot of area that would have had water under it that this could have worked at. I just don't understand why Tavor waited so long. Let me take a break for some tea. Okay, let's come back with some epic scenes. Some of my favorite scenes outside of the final battle. Draconis. Oh, this scene is so good. Fate glanced back at the sweetest sufferance, but the woman was mostly gone, and in her place, rising up from the broken earth below, was a stained wrist thick as the bole of an ancient tree. The hand pushed its fingers through the woman's body, as if fighting free of an ill-fitting glove. Gore streaked nails clawed at the air. The ground tilted beneath Fate, almost pitching her from her feet. The arm was reaching higher, the remains of sweetest sufferance body still clinging to the grasping hand. Blood was burning away, blackening, shedding in flakes, revealing a limb of purest jade. I'm skipping forward now. He turned back in time to see Draconis drawing his sword. Blackness poured from the long blade like wind-whipped shrouds, billowing out, twisting too close around the man like folding wings. Draconis disappeared inside the darkness, and the inky clouds spiraled together, growing in size. In moments, it towered over them, and then those black wings unfolded once more. I'm skipping forward again. She slowly sank to her knees. A god. That was a god. Were they both gods? Did one just murder the other? This scene is so much of what I love about Erikson's really epic fighting, battle action scenes, because it's the environment that he draws out. It's all the atmosphere. I didn't even read all the description, but it's how he depicts what's happening, and then the scale of everything, how massive it all feels, and then the reactions of people just looking around going, what? Which is exactly how I feel, like the awe and the shock and the, is that really what just happened? Like we're all just experiencing it together. It's the atmosphere of it, it's the epicness of it, and then it's the, oh my goodness, at the end. There was also the scene where Hood, oh my goodness, where Hood just bites the face off of Equity. I had to look at her name. I have the ebook on my phone. Of Equity, the way that's written, grabbing a hold of her and then just biting her face off in 2 bites. And then she's hanging in his arms. Oh, it's so grotesque, but it's so cool. And then of course you have the battle at First Shore. Oh my goodness, this battle that stretches over a good chunk of time. We get it in little bits, and it's so incredible. I love the way Erikson writes this, what is it, like a tornado of dragons, like a storm of dragons up in the air, fighting at each other, biting and clawing at each other. This massive whirlwind of masses of dragons fighting. Oh, and Yadon in this battle too. Oh my goodness. Yadon was incredible with his sword that's laughing as it's taking everything down. People looking on, thinking to themselves, it's gotta be an army of hundreds of men, but no, it's just the one. He's slicing through the hounds, cutting off the one hound's head and just tossing it back, killing dragons. I mean, oh my goodness, the way Erikson writes action. Okay, it seems projecting is something that my voice cannot do right now, so we're gonna try to keep it chill. Let me complain for a minute. The Four Colosseum, I don't think were built up enough. They were introduced kind of later in the series and then just became our big bad, but I don't feel that there was ever much given to them to make me intimidated like I needed to be at the start of this final battle. Don't get me wrong, I'm not complaining about the final battle. I'm just, when I got to the final battle, I didn't feel a lot of tension from the Four Colosseum, personally. Now, we've already mentioned that they have this warped view of justice, this totalitarian, okay, it's just time to wipe everyone off the earth kind of solution. This sort of, I've gazed upon humanity and I'm not impressed, to quote Karsa, it's not a new or difficult idea to wrap around a villain, but the Four Colosseum, to my knowledge, I'm not sure they won a single battle before the final battle. We saw them take on several people, and it seems like they were constantly getting crushed. So even though people were intimidated by them and they were hyped up as this big bad, in action, I really didn't see a lot that made me intimidated by them. And on top of that, they have this very, just kill them all sort of philosophy, but there wasn't any sort of depth brought to them, I didn't think. So they just sort of felt like this blob of big bad, but there wasn't a lot that made me intimidated by them or made me interested in them. I mean, they were made irredeemable in the books, but I didn't know anything about them. No background, hardly anything about them. Maybe this is my poor memory coming into play, but between them not really winning any battles leading up to this, or if they did, hardly any battles, so they didn't seem that powerful regardless of what people were saying, but then also I didn't feel like there was any sort of depth put into them, so they were just like, rawr, we kill humanity. So I just didn't feel a lot of tension going into battling them here. Now, I loved the final battle, but I do think that they could have been built up better to make me go into this shaking to have to face off against them. All that said, I do love their power of the voice. Every time that they would say kneel, oh, it was so good. So it's not to say that they don't have any power or that Erikson didn't make good use of them, in this final battle. It's just the buildup, I think, could have been much, much stronger. Okay, let's get back to more positive. Mappo. I love Mappo so much. It is so tragic that Ikariam forgot about him. I feel like Mappo has suffered so much throughout these books, to include this one, and all that Mappo has gone through in order to protect Ikariam, to protect this world, and to see that Ikariam has forgotten him, oh, it broke my heart. And Mappo's death crushed me, just as his windpipe was crushed. Oh, it hurt me so bad. The way it was written was extraordinary. There's a lot of head hopping in this series, and sometimes, especially Dust of Dreams, that really becomes tiresome to me. But it's funny because when we got to Mappo's death, I'm trying to find the scene now so I can reference it correctly. But when we got to Mappo's death, I remember as she was crushing his windpipe, I remember getting on my phone and just shouting at my friend, "Not now! Don't head hop now!" But then I read the next scene, then I read, because there was a scene break, and the next scene was in Mappo's head. Oh, and one thing that I really didn't expect would have affected me so much was Pithy's death. I wasn't really attached to Pithy or Brevity up to this, but the way Erikson wrote it with Pithy's monologue during the death, I understand I'm not a soldier, I'm a soldier, not a thief, not a criminal, a soldier, and a soldier never lets go of the sword, ever. You see it in their eyes. Can you see it in my eyes? I bet you can. It's true. At last, it's true. I was a soldier. And then cut to Brevity, watching the death and reacting to it, feeling it. Oh, it was so effective. Okay, I can't find Mappo's death in my highlights, so I'm just gonna have to go off of memory. Anyway, what I want to say is there was a scene within his scene, there was this line where Mappo, he dies trying to save Ikariam, but when he does, Ikariam stops, and I think what he says is, "I've just remembered something." And I don't know if I'm just hysterical and just making things up, but I want to believe that he just remembered Mappo. Did he remember him just there? Like, it's tragic that Mappo died with Ikariam having forgotten him, but it's also kind of beautiful that his sacrifice might have actually invoked those memories as well. I need to calm down. Anyway, Ikariam's companion dies, and I'd like to air out a personal grievance here. I don't like Ublala. I was fine with him for a while, but I talked about this in a previous video, but sometimes Erikson's jokes can feel very stale. It can kind of feel like he's just making the same joke over and over again in different contexts. And Ublala is a character who is just one joke repeated again and again and again, and it got so old so fast. Now, I love Draconis so much, and so I suffered through the Ublala scenes for Draconis, and Draconis' affection for Ublala was actually quite sweet, but that's despite Ublala being there that I feel these things. All that said, Ikariam's companion dies, and Erikson ends the book with Ikariam getting a new companion. And it feels like a personal offense to me that we have to end the book on that new companion being Ublala, even though I don't have to suffer through reading it. Pick anyone else, I beg. Anyway, great scene. Another companionship that I love amongst in a book full of excellent companions, excellent brotherhood written, is Quick Ben and Kalam. I love their relationship. Quick Ben, easily one of my favorite characters in this story, mostly just because he's so unbelievably cool. And Kalam, also unbelievably cool, incredible strategizer, but just seeing these two together was a real joy for me. And one more, Fiddler and Hedge. Fiddler pushing him away because he just didn't want to have to grieve him, he didn't want to have to mourn him again. Very understandable and so sad, but also we got such a satisfying conclusion to that when they turn to each other and try to start moving forward. I have the scene right here. As Hedge moved to join the squads, Fiddler called out, "Wait." He turned back. "What now?" "Something else everyone needs to see, I think." And Fiddler stepped forward and held out his hand. Hedge eyed it. "You think that's enough?" "Start there, idiot." Smiling, Hedge grasped his forearm, and Fiddler pulled him into a hard embrace. Oh, it makes me emotional just reading it again. Okay, now I want to talk about the Crippled God for a little while, as well as try to do kind of an overarching final battle discussion. But I'm going to go make more tea, rest my voice a little bit, and maybe I'll be less unpleasant to listen to for the final bit of this video. Be right back. My fingers are purple now. I was cutting up cabbage. So the thing with the Crippled God is I feel that so much has been recontextualized for me in this book. Maybe that's me having missed things because I took long breaks between stuff, but up to this point, my understanding was that the Crippled God was chained because we were trying to protect the world from him. And we've seen him do a lot of destruction, so that seemed valid. It seemed confirmed within the story itself. But here in this book, we see that it's all been a lie, and that in fact, he's chained for the purposes of the other gods trying to use his power for their own gain. So all that we've seen him do up to this point has largely been him trying to get free, and also potentially him lashing out in retribution for what has been done to him, which matches, you know, a lot of the theming that we've already spoken about before with the Forcalasail and their god. This vicious cycle, I guess one could say, this vicious cycle of, you know, hurt begets hurt. There was a conversation that Fiddler had with the Crippled God after he had gotten his body and, you know, all of that, that really struck me. Here it is. Fiddler drew closer. "I'm sorry," he said, but the twisted face softened, and in a frail voice the Crippled God replied, "No need. Come near. I'm still so weak. I would tell you something." Fiddler walked until he was beside the figure, and then he squatted down. We have water, food. I don't know, that feels impactful now after going through the glass desert with him, and now to see him be able to offer water and food to someone else. Anyway, that's an aside. But the god shook his head. In the time when I was nothing but pain, when all that came from me was spite and the hunger to hurt this world, I saw you Malazans as no better than all the rest, children of your cruel gods, their tools, their weapons. He paused, drew a rattling breath. I should have sensed that you were different. Was it not your Emperor's champion who defied Hood at the last changing? Did he not cry out that what they saw was unjust? Did he not pay terribly? Fiddler shook his head. I know nothing about any of that, Lord. When he came to me, your Emperor, when he offered me a way out, I was mistrustful. And yet, what do I see now? Here, standing before me, a Malazan. Fiddler said nothing. He could hear conversations from all the slope sides of the barrow, voices raised in wonder and plenty of cursing. You are not like the others. Why is this? I wish to understand, Malazan. Why is this? I don't know. And now you will fight to protect me. We can't break those chains. She was wrong about that. No matter, Malazan. If I am to lie here, bound for the rest of my days still, you will fight to defend me. Fiddler nodded. I wish I could understand. So do I, Fiddler said, with a grimace. But maybe in the scrap to come, you'll get a, better sense of us. You are going to die for a foreign god. Gods can live forever and make real their very desire. We can't. They got powers to heal, to destroy, even to resurrect themselves. We don't. To us, all gods are foreign gods. The bound man sighed. When you fight then, I will listen. For this secret of yours, I will listen. This scene, again, feels like a culmination of so much of what Erikson has been saying throughout the story. Compassion, compassion, compassion. It's brought up again and again and again all throughout these books. And this is the conclusion. Shockingly enough. Here I thought, we're going to kill the crippled god and then win and victory and everything is, we can move forward from there. But actually, it turns out that so much of the destruction and the pain that we've seen has been a result of the destruction and the pain that's been put on him. And it is this act of compassion, this act of kindness, this act of selflessness that causes the crippled god to reassess the situation, to reassess the Malazans, and to realize that there is something there more that he wants to understand. And it's these two beings attempting to understand one another and then joining forces and changing the tides of history. This is the other scene in this book that I feel is where I don't know if this sounds cheesy, where the themes of the story have finally let out their sigh, let out their breath. This is it. This is what we've been building toward. And now here we are. And there's so much that it took to get us here as well. The strategizing, the fighting forward, the jumping from camp to camp, from battle to battle to get here. All that we had to do in order to get to this moment makes this moment feel like it really cost us something to get here. It doesn't feel like just, a conversation turned our enemy into our friend and now world peace. That's not what we're doing here. There's so much more behind it. There's so much sacrifice and loss that came from it, and so much buildup that brought us here as well. And it's not like the danger ends here either. They had to get the physical heart from the place in the spire and bring it to this altar point to be able to put it in the body. But also there was this awesome scene where these dragons were sacrificing themselves to bring a physical body to the crippled god. So they have to reunite the heart to the physical body and then also release the chains. In the midst of all of this, there's so much battle happening. And in the midst of all of that, we have these incredible, impactful scenes that are happening as well. Some that really stand out to me here in this final battle that really impacted me. Tool, after everything he's been through and after everything that he's become because of all the pain and suffering that's wrought on him, and then he has wrought so much pain and suffering again. We're talking about that theme again and again. He has this incredible reunion with Hitan and his children. I read that scene and then stopped for the day and then came back to keep reading the next day and went back and just read it again because it was such a touching scene. And while I don't know why it happened. I don't know how it happened. I know talk was involved, but, and I don't know whose feet Hatan has now, but it was such a beautiful, beautiful scene and a conclusion that I needed for Talk. But also, Talk had a great scene, a great conversation with Stormy and Gessler, talking about their loyalties and what they're fighting for and why they're fighting. There was a dragon, and I can't remember her name now, and I feel really bad about that because there was a really impactful scene with her too, where she's done so much destruction and has sought out to destroy the world, to destroy her kin, to destroy everything. And again, back to that same theme, she's not at fault for what she's become, but she's caused so much destruction anyway. And we had to put her back in chains, but more merciful chains. And there was this scene where the crippled god, when they realize that they have to chain her again, his face crumples. And I'm pretty sure that's how it was described, that his face crumpled and he goes, "Me? You want me to chain her after I've been chained and suffered for so long?" Like, the idea of putting another in chains was so heart-wrenching for him, but it was also the more merciful decision. And we got her perspective on it too. It was just really powerfully done. Of course, the scene where Stormy grabs a hold of Sin and just like wraps his arms around her and falls over with her into the flames. And Gessler's reaction, his grieving response, and then his sacrifice as well. Both of those deaths were just devastating to me. But also, again, with the tragedy of losing them, there's also, you know, the triumph of they stopped Sin from being able to take on that power herself. I'm pretty sure their deaths actually make it so that Hood has enough time to grab a hold of Sister Reverence and just brutalize her, screaming, "I've had enough of your justice." Oh, it's such a good scene. It's so satisfying. And also just watching Fiddler and Hedge and the Bridge Burners defending the crippled god, or rather defending the body of the crippled god while they're trying to destroy the chains. Oh, also, Karsa kills, I know I'm way out of order. I'm not trying to be in order. I'm just trying to talk about some of the biggest moments that really just were incredible. Karsa kills Fenrir, making good on the promise that he made to kill a god. And then his blood rains down and causes everyone to rise back to life. Bad timing, as some of them say. I wanted more Karsa in this book. I was so disappointed that he didn't play a grander role, or rather, I mean, it was a pretty grand role. I was disappointed that he didn't get more page time, but what a scene he got. I've already hyped Quick Ben, but there's no overhyping Quick Ben. Quick Ben materialized just on the other side of the hole, drew out a small round ball of black clay, leaned over to peer down. "Compliments of the Marines," he said, and dropped the ball. The wizard had to lunge backward as a gout of fire shot from the hole, and all at once the tent ceiling was aflame, and Quick Ben was nowhere to be seen. I love him so much. Every scene he has, I could read out to you and just spend a whole video doing that, and I'd be pleased. It would be worth my time. But I love him so much. Oh, and you know what? He had another scene. Here it is. Quick Ben stared upward. This is at the end of it all. Quick Ben stared upward, praying under his breath, and then his eyes narrowed, and he could see through Corobus. "He has her. Whoever you are, you have her now. This is going to work. I promised you, didn't I? All right. So maybe I can't take all the credit. Maybe. For modesty's sake. If I ever talk about it, I mean. But here, in my head, I did it." You did do it, Quick Ben! You did! Oh, it was the Otartle dragon that I was talking about before. Sorry I couldn't remember the title. It's a lot to keep up with. Okay, Bryce, the scene with Bryce where he starts reciting all the names that he's been carrying within himself all this time. So basically, what I think happened is one of the Forkal Assail tried to use the power of the voice against Bryce, but then he was able to recite all the names that he's had within him that basically tormented him all this time. He was able to use that as his defense, and the power of the voice ended up bouncing back on the Forkal Assail. His face was a stretched mask, thin over the bizarre skeletal structure underneath. His eyes wept red, his mouth was open, pulling taut at the jaw, angled down as if the names were pouring down the Pure's throat, as if he was drowning in their deluge. Bryce's own soul was shredding apart. The world, the valley, the battle, all fell away. He could feel his pressure in the sea now. could feel his legs planted in the shin-deep mud. The current rushed past him, scouring the flesh from the bones of his soul, and still he had more to give. I was hysterical. During this scene, I picked up my phone and I just started shouting at my friend. I was like, I think Bryce is dead. He used all the names, and then the voice bounced back, and now his soul is being ripped apart, and I don't know if he's even still alive. I probably don't need to recreate that with the state that my voice is currently in. A very overwhelming scene. Amazing scene. Okay, another one that was such a good scene. I'm gonna read this one out too. I'm really sorry, but actually no, I'm not. Do not attack me. Please, someone, stop him, please. I will kill him. She heard him arrive, and she dropped down into a crouch, spinning around, eyes opening, a heavy helm, an armored body, lunging for her. Her blade was a blur. Whew. I already have chills just rereading it. Then we have a scene break. He caught her wrist, was rocked back by the force of the swing, pulled her close as she struggled, fumbled at his helm strap. Tavor, stop. It's me. It's Ganos. The helm came away, left his head to thump on the ground. She stared up at him, disbelieving, and then, in her face, everything shattered. I lost her. Oh, Ganos. I lost her. I don't think she knows that she was the one that killed her sister. I don't think she does, but oh my goodness, what a scene. I thought we were just gonna have a repeat of what we've already done, but instead we got this. And this is something that Erikson gave us in this book that I really didn't expect, which is a lot more relief. We've had so much tragedy, we've had so much pain, but in this book, we still had that. We still lost Stormy and Gessler and Mappo and so many people that I care about. But we also had scenes like this and scenes like Tool with Hatan where we've had so much buildup of this grief and this pain, and we actually got release from it. Wow, my memory card's almost full. Okay, I'm gonna try to wrap this up. I've been talking for a long time. So there's so much that's explored in this book. There's so many incredible, impactful scenes, especially, you know, in this last giant chunk of the book. But the book is also, you know, showing the consequences of the decisions that we make, the selfishness that we make, the actions that we have. It shows the cycle that perpetuates when we cause harm on others in our selfishness and our own vain ambition, and how that then, you know, that then affects the next one, and Erikson shows that cycle finally breaking between Fiddler and the Bone Hunters and the Crippled God. And while he sets up this look at utter destruction, this look at, do we deserve to be destroyed for our dark deeds, he also shows incredible acts of compassion. He also shows what humanity is capable on the other side of it. And he shows the fruit of actually choosing that over choosing, you know, division over selfish gains. It was an incredible conclusion to the series. Now, I've said a lot of positive, so let me have a second for a little bit more negative. I still feel the same as what I've said in previous videos, where the second half of the series has a lot of bloat. The first half of this book, there was so much walking and talking and wandering and philosophizing, and you know, the battle of the shore was broken up into bits and pieces and spread out over a good chunk of time. And I think that was a really good choice, because really nothing else was happening at that point in the book. Nothing else of consequence was happening at that point in the book. It was a lot of wandering. It was a lot of talking. And so having that battle dispersed throughout all that as well was a relief as far as like keeping me going. But there was a good chunk of this book where I was just like, oh my goodness, like, why are we still doing this? Why are we still wandering and talking in this final book when there's so much left to do? And I do think that while I love the final battle, I love the conclusion, I'm very satisfied with so much about this book. There is also a piece of me that's like, man, there are characters and plot lines that just did not get addressed at the end. They feel totally dropped. Now, I've heard that they get picked up in the side series that's written by someone else. But as far as just concluding the series, this massive series that I've invested all this time in, there are things that I look back at and I'm like, I feel like instead of adding more side characters in every single book, like so many more characters that we keep adding, instead of doing that, we could have put, and instead of constantly checking back in on the wandering again and again and again, where it feels like we're not making any sort of progress at all, it seems like we could have spent that time actually wrapping up some of the other things that felt significant and that I was invested in as well. Overall, obviously this is an incredibly positive video. I just don't want to end it without going back to previous complaints that I've addressed before and say, yeah, those are still there. This is, I still struggle through sections of these books because they don't always feel like they need to be there. It does feel like the series suffers from bloat, especially in the second half. But it also has probably some of the most epic scenes and giant battles that I've ever read in all of fiction. And some incredibly, amazingly emotional looks at brotherhood, at sacrifice, and at compassion. It's not a perfect series to me, but it does deliver really strongly in so many ways. There's so much pain and suffering and difficulty in this series, but there's also, in the end, I think this is the first book that I finished, the first Malazan book that I finished and actually felt good at the end. Like, I feel like I had that cathartic sigh as well, where I felt hope, pain, tragedy, suffering, difficulty, but hope too. It's not the ending I expected, but it is an ending that I have loved. Sorry for the abrupt end of this video. I feel like I've got no more voice left to give, but please do chat with me more in the comments. I would love to hear your thoughts on this book and to continue talking about the many, many things that go on in it. I'll see you again soon. Bye.